Hello and welcome back to the scariest time of the week for me on Reality Check, which is when my colleague Meagan Ourada asks me the questions you most want answered. Fire away, Meagan.
All right, Ross, good afternoon to you. Our first question is coming from Jacob E. Stone Cipher 791. Hello, Ross. Can you elaborate on Jake Barber saying that he is still in touch with the feminine loving entity that he connected with? Jake stated that he is still currently being guided by her. Any information you can provide will be greatly appreciated. Thank you for all your hard work, Ross and Alex. I look forward to next week's Q&A with Meagan.
I have no doubt in saying that Jake is absolutely right, and it's not just Jake who's talking about the feminine. There is something going on, and I wish I could understand it. Girls rule, frankly. Whatever the phenomenon is, it's very strongly feminine. I'm really struck by the number of people I talk to, especially people who are in the psionic area, who describe a deeply spiritual engagement with something that feels feminine. I noticed Chris Bledsoe, who I've never had the privilege of interviewing, and maybe at some stage I should soon, talks a lot about the mother or the Mother Mary, and he has that kind of religious view of whatever the phenomenon is. I honestly wish I knew the answer to this, but yes, it's real. Jake and I talk frequently, and I love and respect the fact that Jake is actually quite open about that intensity of experience that he has, and that he's still in touch with it. And he's not the only one. So many people, and I feel so privileged, so many people have reached out to me in recent months since that interview with Jake and told me that they've got the same connection. And I don't think it's any coincidence that if you go back into the ancient traditions, the Vedic traditions, there's always a divine feminine. As for what it is and what more I can tell you about it, let me do the research. Still digging.
Okay, Ross, this next question also kind of goes with the Skywatcher Jake Barber stuff. It comes from your Twitter, specifically your retweet of Matthew Pines from Skywatcher. He was teasing part 2 was coming soon. Pavel says, have you personally seen some of this stuff? Any initial cryptic thoughts about it?
I haven't seen it, Pavel, but by the time this Q&A goes to air, you will be hearing from Jake Barber and Matthew Pines in a special reality check where we do a definitive interview with the pair of them talking about what's about to come. There's going to be an unveiling of dramatic new vision, new video from Skywatcher, I think on the 7th of April, which I suspect is after this program will be going to air. And that video is talked about by Jake and Matthew in a reality check, which is probably about to go up or has already gone up at the time of the posting of this Q&A.
All right, Ross, next question also comes from Twitter at 3217638. Why is David Grusch still waiting for renewal of his security clearances? This administration hasn't exactly been one to worry about giving less than experienced people high-level clearances or even background checks. Why does Rep. Burleson have to wait for the same? If anything, smells suspicious.
And you're right to be suspicious. I mean, let's not beat around the bush. There are people that do not want David Grusch to testify in a public hearing candidly about what he knows. And they certainly don't want Congress to pursue this like a dog on a bone, because if they do, they will uncover what David knows, which is the legacy retrieval and reverse engineering program. Yep, I'm stating the obvious. There are people inside the defense and intelligence community who hubristically and arrogantly assume that they have the right to suppress your knowledge of the biggest secret in human history. I think it's disgraceful. I think we should call it out for what it is. And I think it's time that people became far more aggressive and pushy with their congressional representatives and their senators and told them that this is what they want. Because at the moment, we're in a very difficult position. I know that there are people on the Senate Intelligence Committee, which has been until very recently our best hope for getting questions asked in a formal way inside the Congress, and they're dropping this issue. They're not interested. They don't think that you, the public, are concerned enough about it. And frankly, if you do want David Grusch put into a public hearing, or at least being able to be given the opportunity to be under the lack of constraints on his security oath, being allowed to speak candidly to a committee in a way that means that he can genuinely share what he knows, you need to tell your political representatives that that's what you want. Because at the moment, I don't think President Trump thinks you care about this. If you do, tell him.
Okay, this next question is coming to our email from Daniel. He says, welcome, Meagan, to the Q&A, and hello, Ross. What have you learned from any of your contacts with Australia's native peoples about UAPs and NHI that they have witnessed or know about?
Do you know, it almost makes me emotional thinking, and it does make me emotional thinking about the conversations that I've had with Aboriginal people all across Australia who chuckle when we all get excited about the phenomenon, because they've been seeing it for tens of thousands of years. It's part of their so-called dream time stories. The Aboriginal people of Australia are the world's longest known civilization. You know, they've been around for 40, 50,000 years. And the achievement of surviving on the inhospitable terrain in Australia in the way that they have done for those tens of thousands of years is breathtaking. But I think one of the most exciting experiences I've ever had was when I did a story about rock art way, way up in the northwest of Australia in the Kimberley, which is a kind of a almost subtropical area at times. There are these deep valleys with the normal dry vegetation turns into cave systems and rocks. And in those rock shelf areas, there are the most profound paintings done with ochre and other paints of the Wandjina beings. These are beings from the Aboriginal Dreamtime that talk to what we're talking about. And if you Google Wandjina, Wandjina, they're breathtaking because they're these big-eyed, obviously humanoid beings that are often bigger than us humans. And they're obviously different from us humans, but the Aboriginal people have them in their oral and dreamtime history. And I get phone calls often from people way out in the middle of nowhere. Australia is a very, very big place. And one of the things that amuses me about Australia is it's part of our mythology, that Crocodile Dundee mythology, that we all walk around the outback with hats with corks hanging off our head. We are, in fact, the most coastal civilization on the planet. Most of us live near the coast. And the interior of Australia, which our Aboriginal people, our kin, have mastered, they understand it beautifully. And I've been so privileged as a younger journalist to go deep into the interior of Australia to places that most Australians never get to see. And the wise people that I've met are amazing. I'll tell you one story. There's a guy called Blue Bob. He sadly passed on. But I was way, way up in the Gulf of Carpentaria, and a mining company were showing me around areas that were the subject of dispute from some Aboriginal groups. And they were trying to show that they could legitimately mine this area. And so they put us in a chopper with this beautiful Aboriginal man called Blue Bob, who was very, very dark Aboriginal, very dark-skinned. And they said to me what he could do was mysterious and mystical. And I scoffed, I'll be honest, I scoffed. And as I watched, he navigated the chopper without any navigation aids across this landscape, talking to the Dreamtime stories that he knew. He could navigate the landscape in the helicopter by going to distinctive features in the landscape, telling those Dreamtime stories that have been around for thousands of years. And he could literally, the thing that amused the managing director of the mining company was that every site that he used to navigate was a site that they couldn't touch because they were very important parts of the Aboriginal Dreamtime stories. And every single one of them had gold or minerals, incredibly valuable minerals right underneath them. And it was like this guy knew something about the landscape that we simple, plodding Western humans don't know. And I've been humbled so many times when I've gone out to the outback and spoken to Aboriginal people who just talk very matter-of-factly about the phenomenon and giggle amusedly at the idea that we think it's new. It's been around, they say, forever, for thousands, tens of thousands of years, and they've always known about it.
Okay, our next question also coming from email from the Gutting Edge. Hello, good people of News Nation. I have a question about the phenomenon that it seems like not a lot of people want to touch. Having researched the subject for many years, I have come across several cases of mutilations. The more common ones involve cattle and animals, but in some cases it's humans. These have some of the same characteristics as the cattle animal ones. My question is, Ross, have you come across any of these cases involving humans, and what are your thoughts on the subject? Are these cases fabrications, or is there something to it?
They're certainly not fabrications, and I commend to everybody, if you can stand it, to look at the photographs of the victims of what's called the Colares incidents. They're incidents that took place in northern Brazil, I think in the 1970s, Colares, and they're harrowing. There's one in particular that will always stick with me of a man who's fully naked and he's been horribly disfigured. I think his genitalia has been cut off and there's a hole in his stomach. He's dead, obviously. And in the 1970s, for a period, there were these horrific attacks that were taking place from craft. They were recorded and observed by members of the Brazilian military who have since very recently testified to the veracity of what they saw. There's video or film that was recorded at the time. And there's beyond any doubt incidents that took place in this area at the time of villages being hit with beams of light. It's funny, you should ask about mutilations because I was only very recently up in a distant part of Australia. I travelled to go and meet a veterinarian, a very senior elderly veterinarian who wanted to talk to me about experiences that he had in the 1970s with dozens and dozens of cattle that were being mysteriously mutilated in an area of Australia. And I sat down with him and we had the most profound conversation about mutilations and how people don't like to talk about it. And it's an issue that, you're quite right, is suppressed. And I do think we should talk about it. I don't know of any human mutilations here in Australia, and the human mutilations are very, very rare. But there are distressing stories from witnesses who claim that they've been abducted, that on occasion there have been seen to be human body parts in some craft that they've been taken onto. I sure hope those stories aren't true, and I don't want to frighten people. But it's one of the reasons why I'm very skeptical of claims that everything about the phenomenon is light and love. Yes, there is a benevolence and a kindness to whatever this intelligence is, but be under no illusions. There is also a malevolence, and it may not all be the same thing. It may be that we are being visited by multiple beings or sentient intelligences, be they extraterrestrial, intraterrestrial, or extratempestrial. Maybe it's interdimensional of some kind. But whatever they are, there is a malevolence there. And yes, on occasion, humans have been hurt and killed.
Okay, Ross, our next question. Huge fan. I'm Panayoti, 24 from Australia. I wanted to ask, how would President Trump or the powers at play go about setting up a church committee? It's been described as a powerful way to brute force the truth out, but what would it actually take to make that happen?
Politics. Simple as that. Hello to my Brisbane friend. Politics. And this is a really important question right now because I watched, like everyone, the recent Anna Paulina Luna task force on declassification hearing where Jefferson Morley, Oliver Stone and Mike DeEugenio and others were called to give evidence before the declassification task force. And whilst I think it was well motivated, I thought it was a big waste of time. It was more theatrics on the JFK issue, and if they do hold eventually hearings on the UFO issue, I suspect those will be theatrics as well. The only way that there will ever be any kind of truth-telling about what the United States government knows on UAPs will be if there is sufficient public and media momentum to force the president and indeed the ruling party in Congress, the Republican Party, the GOP, to do the right thing and commission a full committee of inquiry. And that's what the Church Committee was, which investigated the CIA's alleged abuses in the 1970s. And the Church Committee quite laudably revealed things that, frankly, the intelligence community didn't want revealed. Serious crimes against the American people where, in complete contravention of all of the rules and laws of the day, Americans were being spied on the orders of their president and their intelligence community in a way that was grossly illegal. Now, that is an allegation that lies at the heart of the UAP issue, that indeed there have been intelligence operations conducted by the CIA in particular, but also in other intelligence agencies that have essentially misled the American people. And frankly, I think this needs to be investigated, but we're never going to see it unless the political momentum is achieved to force those in Congress to realize this is something that people care about. Jake Barber would say, and you'll be soon seeing an interview from Jake with me and Matthew Pines and Jake coming up on Reality Check about the Skywatcher program, he would say we're kind of wasting our time ever expecting government to be candid, and that there really isn't the political momentum or initiative right now for the truth to be told. And sadly, I'm beginning to think he's right. So we may not ever see a church-style commission. I really, really wish we could, because I think the only way that the full secrets inside government will ever be revealed is if, frankly, we offer an indemnity to people in return for telling the truth, and that we have some kind of truth and reconciliation commission where people are brought in under oath and compelled to give evidence about things they would rather not talk about.
Okay, Ross, our last question today is coming from Andrew Cheney. Hi, Ross. I'm 33 years old. I just read your book, In Plain Sight, revised and updated. I have to say it was one of the most interesting and intriguing I've ever read, and I couldn't stop. Is it fair assumption to say that if the US government is saying it's not secret advanced technology and not a foreign technology, if a private aerospace company is holding retrieved craft, could it be Elon Musk behind some of the kind of super advanced technology? Do you think that's why there's been no disclosure, as he knows, the president, that Elon is behind it? Could he be an investor?
I don't know if it's Elon, but there are certainly private aerospace companies, and I know their names. This is the frustrating thing. I know their names. I know the principals involved, the executives who direct it. I even know some of the government officials who are involved in the coordination. And so does the Congress. They've been given these names by witnesses. There is a program working with retrieved non-human technology right now in the United States. And one of the reasons they're so secretive about it is because the Russians and the Chinese have exactly the same program. And as David Grusch told me in his interview nearly 2 years ago, David referred to the fact that there is a Cold War going on. There is a fight between adversary nations, Russia, China, and the United States, and I suspect nobody's saying this publicly yet, but I'll say it, Israel. I suspect that these countries are all involved in a battle to secure the knowledge behind retrieved non-human technology. And the great tragedy is, if they were more open and shared it with the world, and if we went through the kind of spiritual understanding of what the phenomenon is, I think we would make progress a hell of a lot quicker than we have done to date. Because I'm told that, yes, whilst we've learned how to engage human consciousness with this technology, the answer is staring us in the face. It's in our minds. What the problem is that this is not a technology as we understand it or that we can comprehend. It's certainly a technology. It's just so incredibly advanced. The only way that we've learned how to engage with it is through consciousness. And the idea of actually constructing it or having the material science abilities to build it is at the moment, I'm told, beyond us. Yes, we've been able to replicate certain technologies from it, and I think the Michael Herrera account of an alien reproduction vehicle that was clearly human constructed is something that people should all be taking a very close look at. There is so obviously a corporation operating in secret, and I think it's being used by the US government to try and conceal this technology from the American public, even though billions of dollars, probably trillions of dollars of US dollars, taxpayer money, have been spent on it. I just think it's utterly immoral and appalling that this isn't being revealed to the public, and it should be. And hopefully it soon will.
Okay, Ross, that's it for today. I'd just like to remind people that you can email us your questions, realitycheck@newsnationnow.com.
Thank you so much, Meagan, and welcome to the Reality Check Q&A. It's great to have you on board.
Thanks, Ross. I had fun.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And please don't forget to click that red subscribe button to ensure you get more of NewsNation's unbiased and fact-driven news coverage.